If trouble had a name, it would be Amarachi Nwosu. She was beautiful, loud, and proudly stubborn, the kind of girl that made elders shake their heads and whisper, "She go suffer marriage." Amarachi didn't care. To her, love was a scam and marriage was a trap. So when her parents announced she would marry Obinna, a calm, soft-spoken millionaire from Lagos, she laughed so hard her mother almost cried. "Me? Marry that silent furniture," she mocked. "Over my dead body." But over her dead pride it happened. Her parents were tired of her reckless ways, the gossip, the fights, the endless nights out, and they believed marriage would humble her. So one hot afternoon, wearing a gown she didn't choose, Amarachi became Mrs. Obinna Ease. From the moment she stepped into his mansion in Lekki, she knew it was war. He was too calm, too organized, too polite. He said please and thank you like it was oxygen. When she threw her suitcase on the couch, he quietly picked it up and carried it to the bedroom. When she barked, "I didn't ask for your help," he only smiled and said, "I know. But I wanted to." That smile burned her blood. She made it her mission to annoy him. Loud music, burnt food, ignoring him at dinner, gossiping on calls till midnight. Yet he never raised his voice. Instead, he'd simply stand, put on his slippers and walk out. That silence, that annoying, gentle silence, hurt her more than any insult could. It was like fighting air. One night, after a particularly rude outburst, she woke to find a box on her bedside, a golden anklet and a note that said, "For my wife who walks with fire. I hope she walks towards peace." She stared at it, confused, angry. Then strangely touched. For the first time, Amarachi wondered if maybe, just maybe, she had met the one man her fire couldn't burn. Amarachi thought maybe he was pretending, that no man alive could be that calm. She waited for him to snap. She even counted days, certain the storm would come. But Obinna never shouted. Not when she ignored him at dinner. Not when she burned his white shirts with the iron. Not even when she locked him out of their bedroom for a full night. Each time he'd just leave, quietly. Once, she caught him sitting on the balcony at 2 a.m., drinking tea and staring at the city lights. No anger, no sighs. Just peace. When he noticed her watching, he smiled faintly and said, "Couldn't sleep." She folded her arms. "You're too calm. You don't even act like I exist." He looked at her with soft eyes and replied, "Maybe I'm just waiting for you to notice that you do." That night she couldn't sleep either. His words kept echoing in her mind. The next morning she tried again. She spilled water on his laptop by accident. He cleaned it silently, then drove her to the mall and bought her a new one. "For you," he said simply. "So you won't miss your calls." His kindness was insulting. How could he not react? She wanted war, but he offered peace every time. Even the gateman whispered one day, "Madam, no better man you marry try no spoil am." But Amarachi wasn't ready to surrender. She slammed doors, broke a vase, insulted his driver, even lied to his mother on the phone, but Obinna never flinched. Instead, every morning after her tantrums, something gentle appeared. A wrapped scarf, breakfast on a tray, or a note that said things like, "You deserve softness, even when you reject it." The more he ignored her chaos, the louder her silence became. She started feeling empty after each outburst, like shouting into a void. His patience became a mirror, and what she saw in it was ugly. One evening, she found herself waiting for him to return home, not to fight, but to see if he would still smile at her. When he walked in, offered her a quiet, "Good evening, Amarachi," and went straight upstairs, her heart did something strange. For the first time in her life, she realized that kindness could hurt more than anger. The first time Amarachi saw the breakfast tray, she thought it was a joke. Pancakes, fruit, a note that read, "You had a long night. Eat something sweet." She snorted, pushed it aside, and went back to bed. By noon, guilt, something she hadn't felt in years, started creeping in. She found him outside, dressed for work, calm as always. "Did you make that food?" she asked. He nodded. "Then next time add pepper." I don't like sweet things. He smiled. You'll learn to. Every morning after her outbursts, something new appeared. A bracelet, a handwritten note, sometimes flowers from the garden. It wasn't just kindness. It was strategy. He never confronted her. He never defended himself. He simply disarmed her with care. It began to disturb her. One evening, she heard him on a video call with his staff. His voice deep, confident, authoritative. The same man who let her shout at him without blinking was now commanding respect from board members and foreign investors. Yes, sir. They chorused after each instruction. When he ended the call, she found herself watching him differently. How do you do that? She asked. Do what? Stay calm even when people act stupid. He looked up from his laptop and said softly, Anger is expensive. Prefer peace. It costs nothing. That night she couldn't sleep again. For the first time, her own reflection bothered her. She looked at herself in the mirror, the messy hair, the pride in her eyes, and wondered why she was fighting a man who only wanted peace. The next morning she tried something new. She greeted him first. It was awkward, like speaking a foreign language. Good morning, she muttered. He looked up, genuinely surprised. Good morning, Amarachi, he said with that same small smile that always melted her nerves. By the end of the week, she caught herself waiting for the sound of his footsteps every evening. And every night before she slept, she'd peek at the door, half expecting another note, half hoping for one. She was beginning to learn something she had never understood before. Some men don't win by shouting. They win by loving you so gently, you start to hate your own chaos. The news came one breezy Friday morning. Obina's childhood friend, Chioma, was returning from the UK and needed a place to stay for a week before moving into her new apartment. Amarachi didn't care. She can stay wherever she likes, she said coldly when he told her. It's not my business. Obina simply nodded. She's like a sister to me. Please be nice. The words be nice felt like an insult. Amarachi decided she would do the opposite. When Chioma arrived, beautiful, tall, graceful, Amarachi greeted her with the coldest smile. During dinner she didn't speak. When Chioma complimented the decor, Amarachi said, Thank him. I didn't choose any of this. But what she didn't expect was the laughter that followed. Obina and Chioma laughed easily, like two people who shared years of memories. They watched movies together, told jokes from their childhood, teased each other about old crushes. Obina laughed, really laughed, for the first time since she married him. And something inside Amarachi shifted. She stood behind the living room door that evening, watching him laugh. His face lit up, his dimples deepened, and his eyes softened in a way she'd never seen. It was beautiful, painfully beautiful. The next morning, she walked into the kitchen to find them cooking together, flour on their hands, teasing each other like kids. The air was filled with joy and something else, peace. Amarachi froze, realizing she had never brought that kind of peace into his life. She turned and left quietly, her heart tight with something she didn't know how to name. Jealousy, maybe. But deeper than that, regret. For the first time she didn't shout. She didn't roll her eyes. She just stayed silent, watching him from afar, unsure why her chest ached whenever he smiled at Chioma. That night she couldn't sleep. She lay awake, replaying his laughter in her mind, realizing how rare it was, and how much she wanted to be the reason for it. Something inside her wild heart cracked open, and for the first time, Amarachi whispered to herself, maybe the problem isn't him. Maybe it's me. Chioma's presence in the house did something to Amarachi that even her parents hadn't managed. It exposed the emptiness inside her. Every laughter between Obina and Chioma echoed like a reminder that she wasn't the reason for his joy. At first, she tried to hide her discomfort behind sarcasm. You two look good together, she said one morning, forcing a smile as they cooked. Chioma laughed it off. Don't be jealous, my sister, she teased. But Amarachi wasn't joking. For the first time, jealousy burned through her veins, sharp, ugly, unfamiliar. She began watching him closely. The way he listened attentively when Chioma spoke, How his eyes softened when she laughed. How he called her Chi Amarachi had never seen him that alive, that human. She realized with a quiet sting that she'd never given him a reason to smile that way. That night, while washing dishes, she caught her reflection in the kitchen window. Her face looked hard, her eyes tired. "When did I become like this?" she whispered. For years she had worn pride like armor, but now it just felt heavy. When Chioma left at the end of the week, the house suddenly felt too quiet. Amarachi found herself missing the laughter she had once resented. She missed seeing him happy. She missed him. The next morning she tried something small, serving him breakfast herself. He looked genuinely surprised. "You didn't have to," he said softly. "I wanted to," she replied, eyes avoiding his. From that day, little shifts began to happen. She started saying thank you instead of rolling her eyes. She asked about his work and actually listened. She laughed when he made small jokes. Each change felt awkward, like learning to walk again, but it also felt right. One evening, she found him sitting on the balcony again, sipping tea. She joined him quietly. "You're not shouting today," he teased gently. She smiled, her voice low. "I'm tired of shouting." He looked at her with that patient calm that had once infuriated her. "Good. You sound more like yourself when you're quiet." That night, lying in bed alone, she realized she wasn't angry anymore. She was afraid. Afraid that she had wasted too much time being the wrong kind of woman for the right kind of man. By morning, she had made up her mind. She would stop fighting peace. She didn't know what love truly felt like, but if it felt anything like the warmth spreading through her chest when she thought of him smiling, then she was ready to learn. She just didn't know yet that love was already learning her too. It started one quiet night when the rain tapped softly against the window. Amarachi couldn't sleep. She had spent the evening helping Obina fix his tie for a virtual meeting, and the memory of his closeness, his scent, his calm voice, the warmth of his hand brushing hers, wouldn't leave her mind. She tossed, turned, sat up, lay down again. Nothing helped. The emptiness of her room felt louder than thunder. She got up, barefoot, and walked through the dimly lit hallway. The sound of rain echoed softly as she stopped before his door. For a full minute she hesitated. Then she took a deep breath and knocked once before pushing the door open. Obina was seated by the lamp, reading. He looked up, surprised but gentle as always. "Amarachi, is everything all right?" She didn't answer immediately. Her voice trembled slightly. I can't sleep." He nodded slowly, closed his book and stood. "Do you need me to get you tea?" She shook her head. "No. She looked around the room, then back at him. "I'm moving here." He blinked, confused. "Moving here? You mean this room?" She nodded again, trying to sound firm. "I'm your wife after all, ain't I?" A slow smile crept across his lips. "You've never called me that before," he said quietly. Her chest rose and fell as silence filled the space between them. For the first time, she didn't feel like the loud Amarachi everyone feared. She felt small, bare, honest. Her voice dropped. "Well, maybe I'm starting to mean it." He stepped closer, his hand rising to tilt her chin gently. His touch was warm, his eyes patient but heavy with something new, something that made her heart race. "Are you sure about this?" he whispered. She nodded, breath shaky. "Yes." He smiled softly. "Then, welcome home, wife." The way he said it, slow, deep, tender, made her knees weak. Then his thumb brushed her cheek. He shivered. His gaze lowered to her lips, and before she could think, he kissed her. It wasn't a wild kiss. It was slow, patient, like he'd been waiting for her all along. The rain outside seemed to follow their rhythm as his lips traveled down her neck. She melted against him, whispering his name like a prayer she had finally learned to say right. Hours passed like minutes. And when morning came, she woke in his arms, her head on his chest, listening to the calm, steady beat of the man who had loved her without shouting, without fighting, just loving. When she opened her eyes, he was watching her with a small smile. "Good morning, Mrs. Ease," he said. She laughed softly, cheeks flushed. Good morning, a husband. For the first time, those words didn't feel strange. They felt like peace. Morning sunlight spilled through the curtains like a gentle blessing. Amarachi stirred first, still wrapped in Obina's arms. For a moment, she just watched him. The rise and fall of his chest, the peaceful lines of his face, the calm that used to annoy her now feeling like home. Felt unreal. The same man she had once insulted, ignored, and provoked was now the one whose touch made her tremble. She slipped quietly from bed, wearing his shirt, and padded to the kitchen. For years she had sworn she'd never cook for any man. But this morning felt different. She wanted to. She wanted to say thank you without words. She made yam and eggs, added pepper just the way he liked, and placed it on the table. When he walked in, still in his robe, the surprise on his face made her heart flutter. "You cooked?" he asked, blinking. She nodded shyly. "I didn't poison it." He chuckled, that deep, warm laugh she had fallen for. "I trust you now." They ate in silence, but it wasn't the old, heavy silence. It was soft, filled with glances and quiet smiles. After breakfast, they went for a walk in the compound. She held his hand for the first time in daylight, unashamed. The gateman smiled knowingly. "Madam, this one sweet love-o," he teased. Amarachi laughed, really laughed, and Obina joined her. Later that afternoon they sat on the balcony again. She rested her head on his shoulder as he read. "You know," she murmured, "I used to think silence meant weakness." He closed the book, looking down at her. "And now," she smiled faintly, "now I think it's strength, the kind I didn't have." He traced his fingers through her hair. "You always had it. You just didn't know what to do with it." That night they prayed together before bed. Amarachi couldn't remember the last time she had prayed with anyone. When they said Amen, she felt a strange peace fill her chest, like her chaos had finally found its home. Days turned into weeks. She started waking up early, helping him prepare for work, calling her parents more often. The neighbors noticed the change. The woman who once shouted at everyone now smiled when greeting the gatekeeper. Even her mother cried over the phone when Obina told her how well Amarachi was doing. Love hadn't changed her overnight. It had simply shown her who she could be when someone loved her without trying to fix her. And that was a kind of miracle she never knew existed. Months passed, and the wild girl from the village was now a woman everyone admired. The transformation was slow, tender, and real. Amarachi had learned that peace didn't mean silence. It meant choosing calm over chaos, love over pride. Her parents couldn't stop singing her praises. Each time they called, her mother's voice carried tears of joy. "Amarachi, you've made me proud," she said. That man was truly sent from heaven. And Amarachi would laugh softly, glancing at Obina across the living room, whispering to herself, "He was sent to heal me." One Saturday morning she felt strange. Nauseous, dizzy, warm. She thought it was the weather until the second day when the feeling grew stronger. Obina noticed her struggle to eat and teased. "You're acting suspiciously sweet these days. Should I be worried?" She rolled her eyes but smiled. "You'll know soon." That evening she took a pregnancy test. The two bold lines stared back at her. Her hands shook as tears filled her eyes. She had never cried out of joy before. In that moment, it felt like every act of kindness Obina had sown into her heart was finally blooming into something bigger than both of them. When he came home that night, she was waiting by the door, barefoot, trembling with excitement. "What's wrong?" he asked, worried. She held up the test stick with trembling hands. "I think we're going to be parents." For a second he just stared, stunned. Then his face broke into the most beautiful smile she had ever seen. He lifted her off the ground, spinning her gently as she laughed and cried in his arms. "Thank you," he whispered against her ear, "for letting love win." The following weeks were filled with laughter and quiet wonder. He wouldn't let her lift a thing. Every morning he cooked for her, and every night he massaged her feet. Sometimes she'd catch herself looking at him and whispering, "I don't deserve you." And he'd reply softly, "You do." You always did. When her parents visited, they couldn't hide their joy. Her father hugged Obina tightly, something no one had ever seen him do before. You made her a woman, he said. You gave her peace. Amarachi smiled, touching her growing belly. No, Papa, she corrected gently. He taught me that love isn't about who shouts the loudest. It's about who listens the deepest. That night, Obina placed his hand on her stomach as they lay in bed. Our child will know peace, he whispered. The kind that once changed his mother. Amarachi smiled through tears. She had finally learned that some men don't change women by power or punishment. They change them by patience, by presence, by love that doesn't shout but speaks softly and stays. Love had rebuilt her. And this time it was forever.